Quote, "We need to break down barriers across disciplines, providing students with opportunities to work on projects that integrate science, art, engineering, and design. We need to break down barriers across age, allowing people of all ages to learn with and from one another. We need to break down barriers across space, connecting activities in schools, community centers, and homes. And we need to break down barriers across time, enabling children to work on interest-based projects for weeks or months, rather than squeezing projects into the constraints of a class period or curriculum unit," end quote, from page 127. This obviously really resonates with me. As I mentioned before, kids were able to learn from and share with different grade levels and across different classes, so we broke down some of the barriers by age. Kids were sharing not just with the classes in the schools, but also with the community and other schools as well. We're looking at some of the projects that the kids in my classes made. And there were no constraints in terms of having to finish a project by a specific time. So some kids literally worked on projects for multiple years, like those 2 kids who were working on the project asynchronously. The reason why they started doing that is because the previous year they are in the same class together and they worked on a Scratch project all year long. And then they wanted to continue to work on that project, but they were in 2 separate classes in the same grade level the next year. So they came up with that creative asynchronous form of collaboration. So I hope when you're listening to this episode and other episodes, you're thinking of, how can I apply what is being discussed in an interesting way in the classes that I work with? But again, this is difficult, especially if we're going to change the field as a whole, because the authors note that it requires a shift in how many people think about education, not just educators, not just administrators, but also like politicians and parents, community members, etc. All right, so here's the final closing statement from page 127 of this article. Quote, "We are at a crossroads. 10 years from now, we hope we can look back and report on a decade of educational change, in which schools have provided students with the time, space, support, and encouragement they need to become fluent with new technologies, so that they can help shape tomorrow's society." End quote.
This excerpt of the CSK8 podcast is from episode number 58, which is titled Coding at a Crossroads. You can listen to this full episode as well as hundreds more by going to jaredoleary.com or by searching for the CSK8 podcast on your favorite podcast app.